Let's see, are we actually getting audio? Checkity check, 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 check. Yep, looks like audio's working. I wanted to... What's in here? I wanted to be showing some drum editing today, but there's something weird about this track that I got. This is the second time they sent it, and we've confirmed from some other tracks, like I added this other one, worked fine. Something phasey is going on weird. So I can't really use this, so we're going to have to send this again. I wanted to be showing the drum editing video, but no luck. So this came across my feed. It's Pro Guitar Tech's Most Hated Things and How to Fix Them. So this is Rhett Shull. I don't really know what he does. He seems like one of those, maybe a church, like worship band kind of thing. He has a lot of these videos. It just, I don't know. It always seems real clickbaity and kind of sketchy. But they did a video with Paul Reed Smith where allegedly, it was called like Paul Reed Smith Ends the Tonewood Debate. And it was no such thing. They provided zero evidence and just let Paul Reed Smith babble on again. And but this one's called, so this is Rhett Shull, Pro Guitar Tech's Most Hated Things and How to Fix Them. So it's going to be a video of his face, and let's see if he actually gets anything useful in here. You know, stick this thing in my feed, and I'm going to comment on it. So there you go.
So acoustic guitars, setting up acoustic guitars and caring for your acoustic guitar. It's important, but it's a little bit different than what you might do for your electric guitar. So today I've come down to Big House Guitars here in Atlanta, Georgia to catch up with my old friend, Ben Calhoun. And we're gonna take you through everything you need to know about setting up and maintaining and taking care of your...
Did you really need a jump cut there? Let me see this again.
Calhoun, and we're going to take you through everything you need to know about setting up and maintaining and taking care of your acoustic guitar. And we're also going to talk about some of Ben's pet peeves as a professional guitar tech and repairman. So I brought my Takamine Lost.
Now this is cool. As much as I don't really like this guy, pretty much, this is about acoustic guitar care, and we all know, man, especially here, right? How many 12 strings have you seen just destroyed because of the body bows? Like, come on, don't even pretend in this day and age guitar manufacturers can't make an acoustic that won't just bow up like a piece of garbage. You know, I'm sure the carbon fiber ones don't, but the wooden ones don't need to either. Brace them. It's not going to completely destroy the sound. We've seen guys brace acoustic guitars and not have an issue with it. So anyway.
Suit guitar down here today because it needs a little TLC, it needs some love. So we're going to get it set up playing.
So I'm going to show my face, my face, 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 my face, 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 while I zoom around and face, 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 face. 30 seconds in, and here I am babbling. Sorry about that.
Better and show you guys the whole process.
Yeah, cool. This is old Martin Takamine.
Yeah. So first issue.
Okay.
We're not righteous.
No.
Yeah. So the jack fell out of the guitar. Like when it comes to ukuleles and acoustics, man, it is hard to get your fingers in that thing, and especially if you got a solder or something. I just yanked the whole thing out, solder, yank it back through with a guitar string or something. But man, it can be a pain, total pain, especially if you got a nut on the other side and you got to tighten it up. Ouch. Maybe there's a trick here.
We're not at Righteous. I have transferred downtown Atlanta, so now I'm at Big House Guitars. And it's great. It's a cool vibe. The store it's very different, but I love it. The vibe is cool. It reminds me of like old school music stores, which I really like. Yeah. It was time for a change. You know, I've been there 9 years, so it was time. Yeah. And I'm happy I did it.
I want to know 5 things that as a professional guitar tech or repairman that you just can't stand.
So restringing is the first thing that would drive me nuts. And actually, if you look at this is a good example. There's not enough wraps on it. And there's a really easy way to do that. But I've seen everything you can imagine, from too little wraps to the Gibson.
You know, everybody fights about how many wraps you're supposed to put on these things, right? So, again, man, I cannot stand Rhett Shull, but this might be an actually informative video from him.
Knot thing. I hate the Gibson knot thing.
What is the Gibson knot
thing? So there goes myth number 1, right? He's just cutting the strings. So if you cut the strings, you're going to destroy the neck because you're going to release tension so fast. Not even. I mean, if the guitar is going to get wrecked like that, it's time for the garbage can anyway.
Okay, So this is how you want it to be, right? So you can just go like that.
Right. So
Can't
that's
do that.
correct.
It's better, yeah.
Okay. Now we're about to do incorrect. At least just do one string
I'll
incorrect.
do one string. This is for you, man, because you know how I feel about this. That. I hate that. So
If you deal with old guitar players, you're gonna see this one a lot. I don't know if it's really called the Gibson knot or whatever, but they're gonna loop the string through. And you know what? In the old days, especially with nylon strings and stuff, this might have made some sense because those things really wanted to slip back out. But oh man, when they get in a guitar and you got to change a guitar string fast on stage, forget it.
the way to do it, just pull your string tight, grab it here, pull back one fret, bend it up, and you're done.
Okay, so you just saw he did it by pulling back one fret. So you hold the string at the first fret, get it tight, and then pull back the string one fret, and then he's going to bend it. Now, he was saying there weren't enough wraps on here. If I do this on my Floyd Rose and I do it one fret back on the E, the high E, the B, and the G, it's plenty of wraps. But if I do that on the low E like he's doing, it's not always enough wraps. Interesting. Okay, let's see what he does.
Wind it up. So from there, hold it. And the reason I'm holding it is, if you notice,
Looping
the
underneath.
wind is going to go underneath, like that. See?
Keep holding it down.
That's the proper way to do it. And because each wind goes underneath, it's locking itself in place. Right?
Sort of.
And when I get ready to take it off, to restring it,
Comes right out.
and I'm done. So because each string's diameter is slightly smaller, you'll get a little bit more wrap on each string, which will lock it in place.
And the thing I go for is 3 wraps on the wound strings, 4 wraps on the non-wound. That's always what I go for.
Sure. But if you pull it back one fret, it'll do it for you. You don't even have to think about it.
My method has always been pull it straight through, measure up just past the next tuning key, clip it, and then send it through. Yeah.
Pretty close, right?
Very close.
The reason I don't clip them before I tune them is just in case it does slip out. Because once it's crimped and there, it's going to be hard to. It slips out and then you can't get it back in. You're
Yeah.
like holding it and janking around. But that's the right way to restring a guitar. If it's a vintage key, say it has the slot and the hole in it, right? So like these
All
style
right.
tuning
I always
keys,
get this wrong, so this is nice to see.
pull the string.
Usually you see this on basses, right? Is my new bass? Yeah, even my new bass has that.
Again, tight, and cut it. Skip a peg, cut it there. For this one, skip a peg, cut it there. Then you stick it down the hole and rinse and repeat.
Also, this Mustang is sick.
Interesting.
Oh yeah, it's gnarly. 69 matching headstock.
Factory custom color too.
It's Lavender Burst, I think it's called. But yes, it's factory. One owner, all original, except for those 4 screws.
No, that's Wildberry Pop Tart.
Wildberry Pop Tart.
Yeah.
I like it. Next thing on this guitar, if you look at the frets, they're just very corroded or dirty. They're not shiny at all. There's a bunch of different things you can use to clean metal with. I use steel wool, 4/0 steel wool. So that's ultra fine steel wool. It's the finest that I can find. When you're using steel wool, I see this a fair amount. You can't do this, okay? Because there's wood there, and you're gonna scratch it against the grain. I'll hit it like this first, just to knock the surface off. And I would recommend taping around that if you're doing this at home. Tape pickups too, on electric, so you don't get the
So I've got to find a way to flip my Instagram screen. So I guess the phone would be sideways. The chat might come out weird, but let me see if I can't do that with the OBS real quick. I'm not sure this is going to be pretty, but let me just try something real fast. Sorry about this, guys. Stream output. So my streaming output. So I could probably do something different for virtual camera than streaming output. So let me see. Streaming. I want to make it I want to make it vertical instead of horizontal. I'm not sure that I can actually do the stream output video. Oh yeah, it looks like I can't. This is a bummer. I'd like to do a separate output for Instagram so that it's vertical. There's just got to be a way. Streaming. I'm looking at in fact, here's my ob settings right here. Maybe you guys know. This just looks like performance. Yeah. Stream. See, I'd like to, if I could change the output there. So here's video. So I wonder, does this affect the virtual camera? I think it does, but I'll deal with this later. Okay, sorry about that. So it's just going to look a little bit funny on Instagram. Sorry. I think we'll live. Okay.
The little filings on it. But I mean, you can see already it's a lot better. The next thing I do, if you're gonna go sideways, which you should go sideways too, because that's where the string bends, right? But guard the fingerboard with something. These are so cheap too. They're so cheap. But then you can throw that on there.
Oh, so that's what you use those
And look
for,
at the
is
difference between
polishing
that
the
fret and
frets.
that fret.
Interesting. Nice. Maybe I should
And
actually
that
start
protects
doing
the
this.
fingerboard from getting scratched up. So the next thing that drives me nuts.
My fingerboards are scalloped, so I don't really care, right?
They'll do this, you know, the whole fingerboard, like sit there and just work it in, and then like go to lunch, you know, and come back. The problem is when you leave this on the fingerboard, the wood is going to absorb it. And think about what's holding that fret in. And it's got a tang that sticks down inside of the wood. That
Right. So I always worry about whether or not stuff that I'm putting on the fretboard is loosening up what's holding the frets. It's kind of silly that we're still using wood for all this stuff. Like, it is just so inaccurate and so prone to, you know, problems, warps and cracks and bending. You know, just so much crap that happens because of things made out of wood, you know? It'd be nice to use something else.
that oil gets up underneath it and softens the wood if you leave it on there too long. So it just doesn't make sense to do that. And I don't know where it started, but like I've seen it so much over the years that it's just not good for a guitar. So what I do, just wipe it on, right?
My trouble is I'm not exactly sure that it for sure is bad for the guitar. The issue is that you know, these are the same guys that claim, like, you know, tone wood and other nonsense. So, you know, who knows? Maybe it's not really bad, you know? I don't know. Yeah, this is a bummer. Like, really like this to be a different way. Anyway. Picture in picture. What does that mean? Let me see what that means. Oh, never mind. That's bad. Okay. I'm just looking at the Instagram app in on Windows. Okay, never mind.
And then wipe it off.
Because, you know, theoretically, if that oil left on could ruin the, you know, make it drop loosen up the frets or warp or whatever, you know, how do you know that even the oil wiping off isn't going to do the same thing?
Way better
Do
already.
you know that actually
Crazy.
happens?
And you don't have to do this every time you change your strings. It might be a couple times a year, right? You're not trying to saturate the wood. You're just trying to keep it, you know, moisturized.
And I imagine that varies for different climates. If you're in a drier climate, probably want to do it a little bit more often. But down here in Georgia, like,
Yeah, twice a year at most here probably, and maybe a little more in drier climates. You can kind of tell when a fingerboard looks dry. If you've been playing a while, you probably had a pin pop out when you're trying to restring it.
Yep.
So the string's actually going to slide up like that. It's
Is
not
my
at the bottom
Instagram
of the pin, it'll
feeds?
slide in. So when you put the pin in, right, put it down. If you reach your hand inside, you can actually feel the ball end. It needs to lock in. So that way it doesn't pop out. So if you've got bridge pins popping out, then you reach in there and just make sure it's seated well. So restringing the guitar, just take all your keys, put the holes like this, straight through. It's also a good time to clean anything. You can't reach it once the string's on. And I normally wouldn't reuse a string, but this is the same string. So pull it up, crimp it, and now I'm ready to rock it out. See that?
Yep.
Wasn't settled yet. And then you can cut this bad boy off. And you can cut it right up against the post. Over the years, and to this day, I get people that go, I want my neck dead flat. Doesn't work.
Why doesn't it work?
Because you have to have some clearance, otherwise you're just metal on metal, right, on the next fret. It's just going to rattle. So you need some amount of clearance, otherwise the guitar's going to sound pretty poor. You can get away with pretty dang straight, but really it's not really negotiable to me. The way that you can measure your relief, there's a whole bunch of different ways, but a couple of them that are really easy that anybody could do. Take you a capo, put it on the first fret. Once the guitar's in tune, right? Everything's in tune, it's ready to rock. Hold the guitar in playing position, right? And then you can either press from the last fret, I like to do from the 12th fret, okay? And the amount of relief, we're gonna be able to see it because I've just made this string, by pushing down here and here, that string's gonna go in a straight line. So I can see the amount of curvature in the neck just by tapping the string. So I can see that there is some curvature here.
You know, I have such little relief. I check relief by just clacking the string against the fretboard. And I know I'm probably being a weenie. I'm probably making my action way lower than it really needs to be. But I'm super comfortable that way, and I know I play eights, so it's extra crazy. But that's how I measure. I know people measure with feeler gauges or whatever. I wonder how he's going to do it, actually. Let's see.
I press at the 12th fret, I measure at the 6th, and it's always between 4 and 7 thousandths of an inch. Go to AutoZone and buy yourself a set of feeler gauges. It's gonna
I
be
use one of those cards, like, let's see, what do you call, I know Stu Mac makes. I don't actually use the Stu Mac one that much anymore, but I use ones that you get off Amazon for like super cheap. But I'll show you a picture of sort of what I do. So I use something like this, and then that's how I see the relief. But I have other ones that have much finer graduations on it and stuff. Anyways.
be 0.05 on there. So I can tell right now it's a little too much relief in this neck. I want it a little straighter. So see how it moves still? And again, 0.005 is your goal, but 0.06 works too. So that tells me that there's still movement. Neck needs to be tightened a little bit to pull it back a little bit more, and that'll give the guitar proper relief. There is not really a scenario where that's negotiable, contrary to what a lot of people think. You know, I used to hear like blues players wanted more relief so they could bend up under. It's not the relief that was doing that for them, it was the action. Metal players might want the neck, you know, dead flat. It really can't be dead flat. It has to have a little bit of relief. The lower the action is, the less relief you'll have. But again, 4 to 7 thousandths is pretty much always right on.
Just the truss rod.
Oh, here's another note. Don't be afraid of the truss rod. You're going to know before you break it. It's not going to be like, oh no, I accidentally broke it. So
I actually had a carve-in where the truss rod, I don't know if it snapped internally, but it sure as hell doesn't work anymore. Like it is pretty bad. And you know, it's sad because the super good new like hot rod truss rods, they don't cost that much. Just put good truss rods in everything. Come on.
like it's tight, right? That's probably all it took. Once you've done the adjustment, grab the head of the guitar and just wiggle it back and forth to settle that rod in. Then you're able to measure it. Just a hair more and we'll be good to go. Oh, this does nothing for you.
What, sighting the neck down that way?
Yeah.
What do you mean? I do that all the time.
Do you?
Yeah.
You know what you're looking at? The
Yeah.
binding and the fingerboard.
I'm looking at the frets going down, and I'm trying to line it up. All right, why? Hold on. That's hold on.
I'll tell you why.
I've been doing this for years.
I'll tell you
I
why.
wanna hear
I'll
this.
tell you why.
Okay.
I'm holding the guitar like this.
Right.
I'm not supporting the body.
Okay.
The neck is going to be further relieved than it would.
Oh, come on, man. Again, this is why we need better truss rods and stuff. But no, sighting the neck, there's tons of stuff you can tell by sighting the neck. Yeah, maybe if you're holding it in a weird way and you're adding relief or whatever, sure, that's not gonna tell you what the relief is, but that sure as hell can still tell you all kinds of stuff about the frets, if they're twisted or warped or whatever. I don't know what he's saying here.
Would be if I was holding it in playing position.
Okay, but what if I was holding the body, hypothetically speaking?
Hypothetically speaking, I hope your eyes are incredibly well because you'll play tricks on you. You'll a lot of times see the fingerboard and not the frets.
I
So
have
that's why you
scallops
do
and I
this,
sight the neck.
because that
I
shows
mean, I
you
could
the
turn on my
actual
camera
plane
right
of the
now and
fret.
show
The
you
fingerboard
sighting
could,
the
in
neck.
theory, be like this,
This is kind of weird.
and the frets could be leveled like that. Hey, you can look down the neck if you want to. I'm just telling you it's less accurate, and your eyes will play tricks on it.
Less accurate than
just
what?
did
What
that
is
in
it
a
that you're
video.
trying to do?
We shot like 2 days ago. I was like, yeah, this is how you want to do it. You just want to sight down the neck. And
Okay, if you look down this neck, does it not look dead straight to you?
Okay, let me see if I can get this on camera. Hold on. I mean, it looks pretty straight.
Yeah, you're not looking
it's
for
not.
relief. What are you talking about? We sight the neck to look for twists and like big fret problems. Interesting.
It has curvature. Okay, so your relief's good now.
All right, so I won't do that anymore. I won't
I mean,
just
you,
like
look, you do what you want to do, but if you want to set the relief properly, this is a better way to do it. Because the string is going to make a straight line no matter what the neck does.
Okay.
Right, so you'll always be able to see. Bunch of different ways to do this too, but whether you use millimeters or inches standard, the idea is I measure at the 12th fret. So these are 30 of an inch. Ideally, you'd be using 64ths if you're using inches, but that's 2 30-seconds, so 4 64ths. And on this side, and I'm looking at the bottom of the string to the top of the fret. And this is, I'm going to call it 3 64ths on this side. I like
And
to
what are you
use
going to do
5
if it's bad?
64ths
This is an
on
acoustic,
the
so
low E
you
string.
gonna file
and then
the bridge
taper
or
over to
add
4
some material to it?
64ths. That's basically 2 millimeter to 1.5 millimeter, roughly. But that's how you want to measure your action. So the action on this is a little bit low. My personal guitars, I go 4 64ths straight across, or 2 32nds straight across. I haven't really met anybody who didn't like that. You do have to be aware on an electric that it probably will buzz a little bit unplugged. To me, that doesn't matter at all. If it does buzz a little bit and that does bother you, raise it up.
Did a whole video on that. A couple
We did.
days ago.
We did. Yep.
Yeah.
We talked about intonation too and how it can't be perfect, but I think it's important for people to have a better way to set their own intonation, because anybody can do it. It's not, again,
On
you're
an
not going to mess
acoustic?
anything up. As with
Interesting.
any adjustment you make, as long as you pay attention to what you did so that you could undo it, you're good. So if you adjust the truss rod by, a turn and a half, and you know that, and it doesn't work out well, you can always go back to where you started. Same thing goes with intonation and action, everything else. As long as you track yourself, anybody can play with this stuff. You're not going to hurt anything. So, intonation. The way that I was explained to this when I was, a younger guy, and the way that a lot of people taught me to set intonation and set harmonics. You probably heard that. A lot of people call it setting harmonics. And what they would do is they would play that 12th fret harmonic, and then they would fret the 12th fret and try to
That's
match
how I
the
do
note.
it.
So the idea is the length of the string would be proper to make the 12th fret fretted note the same as the harmonic or open string. So that's cool, and that is true. But when you're doing a setup, don't just check there, because you have something really big involved now in the nut. There could be an issue with the nut that causes this whole thing not to work out as well as you would hope.
We've seen times where a bent string, even a brand new string that was kind of bent and weird from the factory, made the intonation completely screwball. I mean, I've posted about this so many times.
I would recommend you try the 3rd fret, 15th fret, 5th fret, 17th fret, and open and 12th fret. And the reason is you're never going to get all of them perfect, but you split the difference between those, and now your neck will play in tune
I really want to know how he's going to set the intonation on the acoustic there.
all the way up.
Right.
So you do each string like that, and an easy way to remember what you need to do is if it's flat, like when we fret it, if it's flat, I need to shorten the string. So I just think of if I flatten something, it gets shorter.
Got it.
So if you remember that, if it's sharp, you lengthen the string. So on a guitar like,
Hell yeah.
yeah, that's bright, huh?
Yeah.
I just sold. So this saddle, if it
Yeah,
was
you
flat,
can move your
I would
saddles
need to
back and
move
forth
the
on,
saddle
on an
this
electric
way,
guitar, but what are you going to do on an
thus shortening the
acoustic?
string and making that 12th fret line up. Okay, this is actually perfect because it's already there. So I can tell you right now this guitar is not intonated. And the way that I can tell is you probably noticed on
So you're going to see this pattern, right? It's going to start from the low E. It's going to be the furthest back. It's going to go up until the end of the wound strings. Then it's going to go back a little bit when it gets to the first plain string, usually the G. And then it's going to get the shortest on the high E, right?
electric guitars, it's usually, well, it's always going to be this, stair stepped up, and then it jumps back and it does it again, right? So anytime I see that higher than that, or this higher than that, and it's not in that angle, I know it's not intonated.
Then again, this guy could be playing drop D or something like that. So there could be some times where it's going to be a little bit weird, but generally it's going to follow that pattern.
You look at the G string, right? That string is about the same thickness as the core of the low E. And that's why those are always pulled back. The A and the B are also very similar. The D and the E are very similar. So the core wire is what you're intonating from. On an acoustic, you can't see it on this, but you'll notice that this string is wound too. And that's why on an acoustic, it'll go forward like that and then back for the last two. So you can see it, you can physically see how it works. And there are 0 exceptions to this rule. So it doesn't matter what you think or what you've heard, it will always have that pattern. And the reason is because it's physics. There is no magic here. So no guitar actually intonates differently than another unless there's something wrong up here. That's it.
Thanks to Ben, as always, for joining me in today's video.
Oh, you're
like I
not gonna
said,
show how
he's
to do the
down at Big
intonation on
House
the
Guitars
acoustic?
in Atlanta, now no longer at Righteous. So come see him down here at Big House. I'll have all of their information and address and everything like that linked in the description box down below.
Well,
This is
I hope
a
we
really
learned
great
something. I'm not
shop
sure what.
here in Atlanta, Georgia. So come check them out. I'll also have some affiliate links in the description box down below to some of the tools and some of the things that Ben was using today that you can use to set up your guitar, like those fretboard protection strips, as well as some of the other things that he was using in today's video. Don't forget to
Yeah, barf. Okay. All right. Well, let's take a look at Glenn's video, sort of on the same subject. I don't know if I'm going to watch this whole thing. We'll see.
Are you recording at home and learning that it's a lot more work than you expected? That there's much more to it than just hitting record and getting amazing results? Recording can be a lot of fun, but problems can always pop up that can derail your session and waste your time. This video is based on the feedback I got from the viewer Pipris, who commented on my 13 things to not waste money on in your home studio video with this request.
Another video idea, skills outside the studio you should learn, like soldering, etc.
Which I think
On soldering outside the studio, what do I always tell people? What's the most important tool in your studio? Piece of gear, like soldering iron, wire strippers, multimeter. There you go. Not outside the studio, that's inside the studio.
it's a fantastic idea because there's so much more to this job than just setting up the mics. Let's take a look at the skills everybody recording at home needs to learn to avoid disaster when things go wrong. Number 1, soldering. I can't emphasize just how important learning to solder is. This is the #1 skill you should be picking up on your journey from aspiring engineer to the guy who can make shit happen.
Yes, get a soldering iron, like I always say. Get your damn soldering iron. I still use almost every day. I'm using that Weller WLC or WTC. It's like $40 still on Amazon. You know, it's funny. That thing's been $40 for forever. It was $40 in 1999, and it's $40 now. So, wow, it was way more expensive back then, but, I mean, according to inflation or whatever, still the same price.
Soldering comes in handy in so many ways. Fixing broken cables, changing out speakers in guitar cabinets, wiring new pickups, fixing cold solder joints on guitars, fixing Harley Benton's crappy wiring on their Active V guitar, and most importantly, building your own custom cables. You can get bulk packs of 10 pairs of XLR connectors.
You know, I don't do enough videos on this. I used to. We're just building cables, build cables, build cables, build cables. Back in the day when you were making a studio, the big money and time you're spending wasn't on all that gear. It was on soldering up the patch bays, you know. But nowadays, you know, you make whatever cables you need for your what you're doing there, and you make perfectly custom cables, the right lengths and whatever. I wonder about this thing you show it on the screen. XLR connectors, 3 pins, male and female microphone, audio cable, 10 colored pairs, XLR adapter. Ooh, I like the colored. Then you can really tell what's going on. $20 for 20 mic cable XLRs. I don't know. You know, there are cheap cables that seem to work, or cheap connectors, but I've had some bad ones before too.
connectors for only 20 bucks. I'd also recommend getting a low-cost soldering station instead of just a cheap iron. I got this on Amazon for 30 or 40 bucks and it's never let me down.
Yeah, I have one of these too, the Vestar or whatever. It looks like it's an imitation Weller WLC or WTC 100, and it uses similar tips, I think, and it's actually worked out pretty well. I have a spare here. It works pretty good.
Grab yourself a spool of bulk mic cable and save yourself a small fortune. Just remember, liquid solder is not glue. Let your iron heat.
I don't know about that. I always say a good electrical connection is a good mechanical connection as well. Maybe that's not glue, but something close.
Heat up, put a small bit of solder on it, and this is called tinning up for better heat transfer. Then be sure to heat the two items you want to bond. Put a little bit of solder on the joint, remove the iron, and let the connection cool. Then tug on it to make sure you've made a proper connection. Remember, we're trying to bond the items on a molecular level, so we need to get those molecules moving. As they cool, they slow down and the two pieces will lock together. Above all, once you've made your connection, never, ever, ever hold the soldering iron like this and admire your work. I did exactly that at 14 and a great big blob of liquid metal dripped onto my arm, and I've still got the scar almost 40 years later. These things can be dangerous. I learned that day to treat the tools with respect. Number 2.
Don't burn yourself with the soldering iron.
Basic amp repair. This is something I had to learn the hard way, that tube amps can be finicky bastards and break down at the most inconvenient times possible. I had a chance to hang out with Warren Hewart and Cameron Webb at Cameron's studio to work on some guitar stuff. And halfway through the session, a preamp tuned the amp we were working with. So I had to figure out which one it was and to find a replacement. And it wasn't a 12AX7, it was a 12AT7. And I remember trying to find one at the local Guitar Center, but surprise, surprise, they didn't have any in stock. But here's what I love about YouTube. I was standing outside the Guitar Center, searching my phone, looking for somewhere to dig up this tube, and a fan of the show came up and introduced himself. Hey man, what you doing in Orange County? I explained I was looking for a tube that Guitar Center conveniently didn't have. And he said I should check out this electronics store about a mile down the road from where we were. He pointed it out for me. So I drove down there and found the tube, got back to the studio, got it installed, and we went back to work. That whole session was saved by a fan. So dude, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for that. I owe you a beer. Now the hilarious bit was Warren and Cameron were looking at each other like, how the hell did he pull that off? And I explained to them that because Windsor is such a small city, we really don't have much in the way of amp techs. And if you can find someone who can repair yours, you'll be waiting months to get it back.
I don't know about changing a tube as a giant amp tech thing, but you know, this what he's saying here is kind of funny because in Hawaii, there's so little, or especially back then, there was like little gear, there was little knowledge on how to do anything. I had to learn how to solder just to keep stuff working because, you know, you didn't have Amazon back then. You'd be waiting weeks for stuff to come in. So I had to solder everything, and it made me really good at it.
Because they're so freaking backlogged. So you have to learn basic maintenance on your own. Changing a vacuum tube is super simple. Make sure your amp is powered down and cooled off, and pull the tube out by rocking it back and forth slightly. Grab your new tube, make sure the pins line up, and pop it in. Bam! You are in business. It's really that simple.
Yeah,
Now, having a spare
really
set on
amp
hand in your
repair, right?
studio might be a
I guess-
great idea because you just don't know when something might go wrong. Another thing to have on hand, keg deoxit. This is great for fixing noisy volume pots on amps, guitars, you name it. I bought this
Except for in Fender Mustang amps, apparently.
can back in 1997 and it's still only halfway used. This is what I call a great investment. Number 3, time management. The one skill we all need that is never taught in schools, how to manage our time. It's almost like the powers that be want us overworked and exhausted. To get the most out of our day and hopefully some time in on our recording skills really does require a plan. Set aside the time you need. And if you're serious, that means giving up other things like video games or sitting in front of a TV. Make yourself a to-do list and prioritize what is actually going to get you closer to
See what you gotta do first. Delegate. Okay.
your goals first and stick to it. And if you're sleeping until noon and wondering why nobody is giving you your big break, go find a mirror. Number 4, guitar maintenance. Unless you love the idea of paying somebody to fix all your guitars, you should really consider picking up a few essential tools, like a set of precision screwdrivers, a string winder clipper, a drill bit winder for quick string changes, and a guitar multi-tool. Now, I love the one from Ibanez because it has the short hex keys, which will fit into a truss rod cavity.
Ooh, nice. I don't have this. I know. We just went through that video where I was showing all the guitar tech tools I had, right? But this looks cool.
perfectly. And apparently somebody else in here did as well, because mine grew legs and disappeared. Seriously, I gotta go find another one, but it was great while it lasted. Now, being able to do your own guitar maintenance will save you some serious cash over time. Minor things like neck adjustments, fine-tuning intonation. These are skills that can be picked up easily. A good rule of thumb is if your action is too high between the nut and the 12th fret, turn the truss rod clockwise to add tension. This will straighten the neck out slightly and lower the action. The strings put a lot of force on them.
All right. Now, I'm sure there's a whole bunch of people that are about to scream. Scott, what do you know, Dr. Groove is like Scott Grove or something like that. He likes to make guitar techs and luthiers mad by saying that the truss rod is for adjusting the action. I mean, you just saw the other video where they use the truss rod to adjust the relief on the neck. And that's really what the truss rod does, right? But the effect is it will seem to lower the action. But, you know, there's specific adjustments on a guitar to lower the action that are independent of the relief. But you could be right in this situation, but, you know, I would say if you know that the relief is right, so check the relief first. And if it's right, then use the other part to adjust the action.
The neck and naturally want to cause it to bow. The truss rod counteracts that force, and the amount of tension we apply can fine-tune the amount of bow, thereby adjusting how high the strings are. Remember, when adjusting the truss rod, to always have the correct size tool and never force anything. Make 1/4 turn adjustments and wait for the neck to settle before adjusting again. If you strip your truss rod, you're screwed. So make your adjustments carefully and don't rush it. Now, if the action
Don't
is
break your truss rod. I like how the other video is like, don't be scared of the truss rod, but, you know, be a little bit scared of the truss rod because you can really mess some stuff up. But you shouldn't. But especially nowadays, everybody should be using double action truss rods that you don't have to worry about. But, you know, there was one in my Carvin that broke, so...
too high from the 12th to the bridge, use the string saddles to adjust the height on them. Again, this is where having a guitar multi-tool comes in real handy, because it should come loaded with hex keys that are the proper size. So you won't have to dig through a pile of them looking for the right one. Now, adjusting intonation is another seriously important skill to learn. The aim is to have the guitar able to make chords that are in tune with each other.
You know, I used to have this little paper that I would give to bands, you know, what to do before you come into the studio. And it had very simple intonation instructions, because otherwise you'd be paying me studio time and I'd be intonating your guitars. That shouldn't be happening.
Up and down the neck. Now, how we adjust this is
Though it happened all the time.
by changing the length of the string at the saddle.
So, you know, check your 12th fret harmonic versus your 12th fret fretted. If the 12th fret fretted is too high, make the string longer by pulling the saddle back. If it's too low, make the string shorter by sending the saddle forward towards the nut. And that's really all there is to it. Like you saw in the other video, you really could get a lot more detailed than that. And you could check it at other places, because sometimes there's weird things, like a bent string will do some weird stuff. But in general, that's really all it needs to be.
Pluck a note on the open string, tune it so it's perfect, then fret that string at the 12th, and you should get a perfect octave. If it's sharp, increase the length of the string. If it's flat,
Look at here. Okay. So he's showing a picture of the saddle, and you can see that the string is all scrunched up in the back. And you notice that so many guitars, there used to be guitars that would say like drop D ready or whatever in the 90s. And the intonation adjusters, the saddles just couldn't move far enough back, so the intonation would always be sharp. They said, even it said like drop D ready or drop C ready or whatever, and you could never get the saddles far enough back. Sometimes there are tricks, like you could cut the spring in half, so it's, you know, you get a little bit closer back there, but might have to file the saddle, which is scary. It's kind of pathetic. Like, they don't always let you get them as far back as you need to go, or as far forward. I mean, the guitar should come with a pretty big range.
shorten the length of the string. Now, this requires fine-tuning and patience, but you'll be rewarded with a guitar that sounds great. The trick is to keep tuning and retuning and make minor adjustments so you don't go too far. Number 5, wrapping cable. Have you ever seen somebody doing this? Do you wrap your cables this way? Well, stop it already, because that's a great way to break your cables, and they'll become a tangled mess of spaghetti when you store them. Let's wrap cable the smart way. Let's use the over-under method. Now, I don't know who came up with this, but whoever you are, thank you. You have cleaned up my studio immensely. Now, this can seem a little confusing at
This
first.
is probably
but with
not
a little
gonna
bit
be
of
how I
practice,
do
you can
this.
get this down, and it'll be wrapping cable in no time, and you'll do it much more quickly and efficiently. So what we want to do is we want to start with the cable facing away from us in our left hand, like so. Then we grab a length between our thumb and our first finger and twist towards ourselves, forming a perfect loop. And the second part here, this is the part that confused the hell out of me, is we want to take the next part of the cable in an open hand, like this, and make a fist, and then flip towards, like so. And then we just alternate. It's real simple at this point. So, thumb, first finger, twist towards,
Interesting. See, I don't
open
do
hand,
this.
fist, flip towards. Look at that. And just keep going. Thumb, first finger, twist towards, open hand, fist, flip towards. And then finally, thumb, first finger, twist. And now we've got our perfectly wrapped cable just like that, no problem at all. And then we just finish with a Velcro tie. This
I
cable's
always
good to go.
wrapped it just in one way. And the way we would tell, I mean, if they're good mic cables, is you have the intern run across the studio and you would hold one end of the mic cable and whip it out. You try and hit them with the with the XLR end on the other side. And it would come out in a straight line. Like if you did it right, you could really throw straight lines of cables out there like Spider-Man.
Till the next time we need it. This skill works on everything. Guitar cables, mic cables, extension cords, even rope. I was working on a home improvement project with my dad a few years back, and at the end of it, we did a cleanup, and I handed him his rope back perfectly coiled. The disbelief in his eyes, he looked at me like I was from Mars. Where'd you learn how to do that? Well, I learned it down in Nashville. How? Roping steers? No, actually, I learned it from Derek from Rev Amps, helping him clean up his booth after Summer NAMM. He was kind enough to take 5 minutes and show me how it's done, and it's now how I wrap my cable every single time. The only thing that makes this method better are the Velcro ties. You can get a stack of these dirt cheap on Amazon, like 100 for 12 bucks, and these will keep your cables exactly as you wrap them, ready to go whenever you need them. Now, why go to all that trouble of learning this method? Simple, because we can grab this cable years down the road and it's gonna unfurl absolutely perfectly every time. We just undo the Velcro, make sure we've got the one part facing away from us, grab the other end, and throw. And it just unravels perfectly every single time. There's no knot, no problem. Number 6.
I guess I gotta try that.
I went to my first NAMM show in 2015 and it changed my life. Because I didn't just check out the gear, I attended the seminars, and those are gold. Because they teach you how to navigate the music business. But the single most important conversation I've ever had in my entire life was with Rob Scowen at that conference. This is back when I only had 27,000 subscribers, and he explained that he made his living on YouTube, and I remember this clearly. He said, "You're gonna do it too." And of course, my reaction was, "Get the fuck out of here, Rob. There's no way that's gonna happen." And here we are, years later, and every single event I go to where I see Rob, it's like, "Hey, Rob, here's your beer." Because he saw something in my show that I didn't. And more importantly, though, he gave me a goal. Although it seemed impossible at the time, it wound up becoming a reality. And now I get to make YouTube videos for a living. And this is all because I went to the NAMM show and met people who were in the same situation as me. So I am forever grateful to Rob Scowen and Ryan Bruce, who got me my first NAMM badge. Thank
I
you.
think Rob Scowen's the guy who had like the Slayer ukulele thing. Let me see.
And that's why friends are like puppies. I just love everyone. Oh my goodness, yeah, that's so amazing. You guys are so great.
Thanks,
I love
guys.
it.
Oh, that was so nice, you guys. Well, I just want to welcome all of our newcomers to our Sunday U group. Usually we have a few regulars who join us, but maybe they were busy this week.
Or maybe they died, right?
These are our special friends, Sarah and Rob. They're a little... Oh my god!
I made brownies for everyone. You guys are gonna love being in our youth group. It's gonna be really difficult for you to leave. Are we next? We've got a song.
Sarah and Rob, the last songs that you played were kind of scary. Do you think you could play a fun song to welcome our new friends? My songs are fun. Do you think you could do that, Sarah?
Yips the doodles, bitch!
Yeah, the Slayer ukulele guy. get back to this.
Thank you so much, guys. Seriously, if you have the opportunity to go to an event like this, go. Make it happen. Don't make excuses, just do it. And don't just wander around the exhibits. Go to the classes. And if you're an introvert, this might seem weird and intimidating, but shake hands and meet people, because you never know when you'll have the conversation that transforms your life. 7, motivation to do it every day. Let's be clear here. There's a very good chance you're gonna make absolutely no money at all by recording. You might get to record a few local bands, but generally they have no money to pay you, and they'll make your life miserable. Please see my video, 13 Things to Avoid When Recording Bands, for a full rundown on this. It's lots of fun. However, for anything to happen, you do need to be motivated. In my case, my day job was so terrible that I saw working with bands as an escape from the day-to-day monotony of working on an assembly line. Each band had its own unique quirks and challenges, which was a nice contrast to the constant repeat of an auto work, which is, here's a few parts, put in the vehicle in under 48 seconds, now do that 500 times, and we'll see you back here for an additional 5 days this week. Enjoy your one day off. What a great life. Believe me, as much as I complain about bands, working with them is what kept me from losing my freaking mind. The experience of making records is what kept me motivated. Find what motivates you and use that as fuel. Yes, you'll make mistakes, but you'll learn from them and you'll get better. Yes, you'll get discouraged, and sometimes you'll even want to quit, but if you really want to do this, you'll power through it and you'll come out better. 8, do your own acoustics. Spending a couple of hours in a recording studio design.
All right, so we've done 4 billion shows on this one, right? But you can drastically improve your situation for very little money and a lot of work.
Form can save you some serious grief in your own studio. Creating your own acoustic treatment really isn't that difficult. I did a video on it a few years back on how to build your own bass drum. It's gotten hundreds of thousands of views, and hopefully I've managed to help a few people along the way. Here's the thing, you don't necessarily have to make permanent alterations to your mixing space to install acoustic treatment. Something as simple as a closet can be transformed into a giant bass trap merely by hanging shirts and spacing them out. You can also hang rigid fiberglass traps from mic stands instead of marking up your walls. And that's the thing, I always hear the argument, I can't install anything because I can't mount anything on the walls, which is nonsense. If you've got an imagination, you can figure it out. And if you can't figure it out, ask for help. The one place I've always recommended to go for help is the John Sayers Studio Design Forum. It's where I got the plans to build this place. Now, unfortunately, John passed away back in 2021, but there is still a treasure trove of great information on there, and the forum's still online. Now, if you guys would like to see a video on acoustic hacks, let me know in the comments, because if there's enough interest, I'll make it happen. 9, drum tech. The sad truth about drummers.
Think about how long you leave heads on drums. That's kind of scary, right?
Is that even though most of them have problems with timing, showing up on time, playing on time, paying the rent on time, almost none of them can tune their own instrument. If you want to record your drummer, you better learn how to swap out drum heads. That's provided you've convinced him that his old broken down drum heads held together by duct tape aren't gonna cut it in the studio and he needs to buy new ones. Let's be clear here, he will barely be able to change them and you can forget about him tuning them. Get yourself a drum dial and learn how to do it yourself, because
See, I've got drum dials, I got tune bots, I got all these things. I use them and then I don't use them, and then I use them and I don't use them. It's pretty interesting though. It's nice to have. I mean, when you're talking about a guitar, you wouldn't not have a tuner. Drums are a little bit different, but there's a lot you can do to get this right.
Because he won't. Put in the time and learn how to use it, because placing it on a drum head and adjusting the lug so all the tensions match all the way around the drum is just too difficult for your average drummer. 10, basic electronics. There's no getting around it. Even the most basic knowledge of electronics is gonna be a gigantic help. Like how to wire a cabinet properly by
how to use your continuity checker to check cables. I mean, that's so big. I might be doing a video pretty soon. I just got a Behringer CT200. Actually showed it on a couple of videos already, but maybe I'll do a full one on this thing, because very handy piece of gear for checking cables. But knowing just a little bit about electronics is super, super handy.
Knowing the difference between a series and a parallel circuit and how that's directly related to the impedance a guitar amp sees. Like how to make 4 speakers into a 16 ohm cabinet or a 4 ohm cabinet. It's all dependent on how you wire it. 2 16 ohm speakers in parallel becomes 8, but if you put them in series with another set of 16 ohm speakers in parallel, you get a circuit that's only 8 plus 8, meaning 16. Confused? Hey, I'll admit I might have gotten this wrong once or twice and maybe even accidentally fried an amp. Having some knowledge here can save you a costly trip to the repair shop, and fortunately, there's a ton of great info out there. I highly recommend looking up a few speaker wiring diagrams before replacing anything in your cabinets. A good rule of thumb is to not mess around with different impedances, and above all, do not mix and match those impedances. If your 4x12 has 4 8-ohm speakers, don't swap 2 out with 16-ohm speakers. That is a recipe for disaster.
I don't know. If you ended up, what would that be? That would be 8 plus 2 would be 10 ohms, I think. I think you'd be okay. If you're gonna go higher, you're safe doing higher impedance than the amps got. But going the other way is where you fry stuff.
Bonus tip, build network cables. Another really important skill is to learn how to make custom network cables. Not for computers, but for analog audio. Shielded Cat5 cable is the greatest, cheapest, cleanest audio snake cable you can get. It's twisted at different ratios, so the noise rejection is outstanding. It also happens to work for 4-channel analog audio. Not digital, not daunting, but 4-channel analog audio. You can use network cable along with some simple, inexpensive breakout boxes found at Thomann for really clean, easy way to hook up a lot of mics and not clutter up your studio. Get one male, one female, and you are good to go. I installed a bunch of these a few years ago, and now instead of 12 mic cables thrown around the room, I've got these 4 little boxes with their own short cables going out to the mics. And learning how to build your own network cable can save you even more money because it's very cheap to get this
Just
stuff
watching
in bulk.
some Guitar
It's
Tech
really cool
videos
tech and a
and,
great inexpensive alternative to the traditional mic cable stick.
getting done,
Check
man.
out my full video on it. All right, guys, hopefully you found the video useful, and if you've got questions,
Well, that was handy. What about the network audio cables? You know, remember when those personal headphone mixing systems came out, and like, man, if you didn't get the thing crimped exactly right, you were having all sorts of problems with those network cables. But maybe there's better ways nowadays. Anyways, that's enough for me.